Welcome back to Creatures, Caverns, and Crafting. Today we're going to have an easy build. I'm going to make some ruined buildings. I'm also going to make some building facades for a Mutant Crawl Classic game. You can also use these for post-apocalyptic games. And I'm just going to show you some tools here. I have a knife and a razor cutter. I've also got a carpenter square and a nice pen just to measure things out and mark some straight lines. So we're going to go ahead and cut this. I went ahead and measured out about 5 inches in height, and then I went over a little less than 5 inches in width. You can make it longer if you want. Now we're going to get rid of those nice solid edges. We're just going to do like we did on our last video. We're going to pluck these away, kind of round off the corners maybe, make it look all natural like it's beaten up concrete. Next I'm going to take a carpenter square and just start marking off where I want doors and windows. I'm also going to add a garage door to this build. Now I'm going to take a razor knife and just start cutting at the foam. What I'm going to do is just kind of use that to pick it out. Then remove it with my fingers. Be careful when using the knife. Always want to cut down towards the table. We're going to repeat this process on the doors and the windows. I'm going to take the carpenter square and just measure out that garage door real fast. And what we're going to do is take some corrugated paper. I've used this before in several of my other builds. And we're going to make ourselves a garage door using that. Here's the piece that I've cut out. We'll just fit that in. Make sure it fits in nice and snug. Here we go. Should look good. Now what we're also going to do is I'm thinking about taking off the edge here and just opening that up, making it look more like a bombed out building. I'm going to make an I-beam next, and to do this I'm just going to use some popsicle sticks. I've cut off the round edge, as you can see. I've joined 3 of them together, and what I've done is just used a little E6000 to glue them all together. The E6000 looks really nice. Actually, when this dries and we paint it, it'll look like a weld spot, and I'm just using 2 bottles to prop it up until it dries. I'm going to take another piece of foam core. This is about the same height as the building front that we're working on. Just going to kind of hold it up for comparison. And we're going to take a little hot glue and we're going to put a nice bead of this all along it. If you're working with hot glue, please be safe. It can burn you. Kids, get your parents to help you out with this. Or in fact, maybe just have them do it. Now we're going to press this onto the building like so. I'm going to make sure that we line it up nice and straight. You should have a few seconds to work with it. I want this to look crooked. And there we go. Just press a little bit more. Don't worry about that seam. We'll take care of it here in a little bit. Also, I want to show you guys up here at the top. I did cut that out just to make it look a little bit more interesting. I'm going to take some foam board next, and I'm just going to grab my pen. Just going to trace around the building like so. And what we want to do is just cut this out and create a base. When we're done, it should look something kind of like this. Now we'll move on to our next step. I'm going to cut a spot out for our I-beam that we created earlier, and to do that I'm going to use a razor knife and a pair of needle nose pliers. We're just going to pluck the foam out once we cut it. Should make a nice fit for the I-beam. Of course, we'll use a little hot glue to fasten that in there. Now when we do this, we want to shoot it below the windows because we're going to add a floor here. The floor we're going to be making, we're going to use some foam core, as you can see here. And of course, I'm just going to hot glue that directly onto the I-beam. As you notice, I've also removed the foam from the window and done the same on the door as well. Now I have some 3D printed windows that I made up earlier. Here they are. I also have a 3D printed door. We'll probably use that to fill in the frame. And I'm also going to use that corrugated cardboard for our garage door. And we'll use a little bit of hot glue just to fasten all that together. Now a little word of advice, if you don't have a 3D printer, can make your own windows. Blackmagic Craft has tutorials on how to make windows and doors. You can also purchase these really cheap on TT Combat. I believe there's some MDF versions. You can also go to a store like Etsy and get an artist to 3D print those for you. I'm going to take some air drying clay here for the next step. And what we're going to do is just add a little bit of water to the surface of the foam board like so. This is going to allow the clay to stick a little bit better. Just knead the clay a little bit, make it a little bit more pliable for us to use. Tear off a piece and just kind of form that to the corner. If you've seen my rubble pile video, we're basically going to be repeating the same steps here. Just going to knead that together. I'm not going to worry about any type of fingerprints. We're going to allow the clay to dry overnight until it's nice and hard. As you notice, I added a vent cover here at the top, and I just put some rubble bits in like I've done before, some mosaic stones, some matchsticks. For those that don't have a lot of time or don't want to create an elaborate build, you can basically create what I have here, which is a facade. And what I've done here is just hollowed out the door and the windows. I'm going to use this piece of wood for my door. This is great for people that might use Ultimate Dungeon terrain. Maybe you don't have a lot of room, or you just want to pass something off as a shop, or maybe a burned out building. Basically, all I'm going to do is what you see here. I may add a little texture, maybe a little flocky in a base, but that's all we're going to do. And as far as the back, that'll probably remain untouched. I'll be going over the foam with some Mod Podge and adding just a little bit of grout mix to this. Again, we're not going to go heavy with the grout mix. The main objective here is to provide a protective coat for the foam when we go to prime it. Next, we're going to add a little bit of earth texture to the base. We're also going to put a little bit on the top floor there of the ruined building, and we're going to just put a little painter's tape on the garage door. Next, we're going to go ahead and prime the buildings using a uniform gray. Also put a little highlight of white at the top. I'm going to paint the ruins in some basic colors and allow that to dry. Now I'm going to go over the entire project using a black wash. You can use a Leonell or mix your own. Once that's dried, I'm going to start building a dry brush to this. I'm going dark to light. Also, I'm going to use a nutmeg brown on the base. I'm going to mix natural and burnt sienna with the ultra matte varnish to get my rust effects. Here you can see I've applied it to the front door and the garage door. I'm also going to apply that to the I-beam that we created earlier. And next we're going to move on to weathering. To do the weathering, I'm going to use an environmental Vallejo paint. This is lime green. And I'm also going to use a Serasepium. And lastly, an Agras Earthshade. Now when we're applying this, a little goes a long ways. I'm going to show you, I've already put a little bit of the Vallejo on. And all I'm doing is just kind of dabbing it with my brush. And maybe taking my fingers and wiping off the excess. We may repeat this with the Serasepium, but let the Serasepium flow. That's going to add a good grime, maybe even look like a rust effect. My favorite part of any project is adding flocking. This is when things really come to life. And I'm going to show you some of the materials I used. First, I used some dry vines, and this was to block the window and the garage door at the back. Notice I never added that. Also, some natural leaf litter. I just applied that to the base. That's from Green Stuff World. I also used some lichen or some craft moss. You can get this at Hobby Lobby, Michael's. Also added some tufts. I have a different variety of those as well. Put a little bit of static grass on the base. We'll flip this around so you guys see the front. Also want to point out this plastic palm tree. I got that off of Amazon, and I did apply some paint and a little wash to it. I'm going to finish off the project by giving everything a nice light coat of polyurethane Minwax. Now when I apply this, I like to apply one coat, allow it to dry, and then apply a second or third coat. This really does well with hardening the foam, and it also protects the paint and everything else that we've done. Let's go see what it looks like on the table. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to my channel. I always appreciate your viewership. Looks like we're getting more and more subscribers, and that's awesome. I really want to continue that growth and that trend. As always, if you like the video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe, follow. More importantly, share this with someone that might like this type of crap. Please stay safe, and we'll see you next week.